you felt it before? That moment when someone walks into the room and suddenly the air feels heavier, your chest tightens, your energy drops. It's not dramatic, it's not loud. It's just this subtle, unmistakable sense that something has shifted. And the strangest part, they haven't even said anything yet. Some people drain you instantly. Not because they're necessarily bad people, not because they're trying to harm you, but because there's something about their presence that pulls at your life force like gravity. And if you're sensitive to energy, if you're someone who feels things deeply, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know the exhaustion that comes after spending time with certain people, the way you need hours, sometimes days, to recover from a single conversation. Most people will tell you to just set boundaries, to be stronger, to not let it affect you. But that's like telling someone standing in the rain to simply decide not to get wet. It misses the point entirely. Because what's happening isn't just psychological, it's energetic, it's vibrational. And until you understand why certain people drain you instantly, you'll keep losing pieces of yourself to interactions that leave you hollow. So let's talk about what's really happening, not the surface explanations, not the polite interpretations, but the raw truth about energy, frequency, and why some people feel like black holes in human form. Think about the last time you spent time with someone who drained you. Maybe it was a family member who always turns the conversation back to their problems. Maybe it was a co-worker who complains constantly but never changes anything. Maybe it was a friend who only calls when they need something. Try to remember how your body felt during and after that interaction. The fatigue wasn't just mental, was it? It was physical, bone deep, like someone had opened a tap and slowly drained your vitality. Here's what most people don't realize. We are not just physical beings having thoughts and feelings. We are electromagnetic fields of energy, constantly exchanging information with everything around us. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that can be measured several feet away from your body. Your thoughts create electrical impulses. Your emotions shift your biochemistry. You are, quite literally, a walking, breathing energy system. And like any system, you can be depleted. When you interact with another person, you're not just exchanging words, you're exchanging energy. Your fields overlap, your frequencies interact. And some people, whether they know it or not, are operating on a frequency that is fundamentally incompatible with yours. Not wrong, not evil, just incompatible, like trying to charge a device with the wrong voltage. The connection destabilizes both parties, but if you're the more sensitive one, you're the one who feels the drain. Carl Jung understood this. He spoke of the shadow, the unconscious parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. When someone hasn't done their inner work, when they haven't faced their shadow, they unconsciously project it outward. They become emotional vampires, not because they're malicious, but because they're disconnected from their own source of energy. They haven't learned to generate peace within themselves, so they pull it from others. They haven't learned to sit with their discomfort, so they discharge it onto anyone who will listen. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. The people who drain you the most are often the ones who need you the most. They can sense your light. They can feel your capacity to hold space. And unconsciously, they're drawn to you because you have something they lack. Stability, centeredness, presence. They're not trying to take it from you maliciously. They're just depleted themselves, desperately seeking an external source to fill an internal void. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of awakened souls walking the same journey of spiritual alignment. But here's what you need to understand. Their depletion is not your responsibility to fix. Think of yourself as a lighthouse. Your purpose is to shine, to stand firm, to emit light. But a lighthouse doesn't jump off its foundation to rescue every ship in trouble. It doesn't dim its own light to make struggling vessels feel better about their darkness. It stands exactly where it is, beaming steadily, allowing those who can see to navigate towards safety. And those who cannot or will not adjust their course, they crash regardless of how much you dim your light or how far you move to accommodate them. You cannot save someone by drowning with them. You cannot heal someone by absorbing their wounds. And you cannot lift someone up by allowing them to pull you down. Let's get specific about what energy draining actually looks like, because it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's the person who talks at you for an hour without ever asking how you are. Sometimes it's the person who enters every room with a problem that needs immediate attention. Sometimes it's the friend who only shares bad news, who only calls in crisis, who has turned you into an emotional dumping ground without ever asking permission. But sometimes it's more subtle. It's the person whose presence makes you feel small, who somehow makes every accomplishment you share feel less significant, who responds to your joy with subtle criticism disguised as concern. That's great, but did you think about, I'm happy for you, but be careful because it's death by 1,000 cuts. No single interaction is dramatic enough to call out, but the cumulative effect is devastating. And then there are the people who drain you through sheer neediness. They're not negative, they're not mean, they're just bottomless. No matter how much support you give, it's never enough. No matter how many times you help, they're back the next day with the same problem, having done nothing you suggested. These people aren't looking for solutions. They're looking for attention. They're looking for someone to make them feel valid, significant, seen. And they'll take as much as you're willing to give without ever filling their own cup. Here's the difficult truth. If someone consistently drains your energy, it's not usually because they're toxic. It's because you haven't established boundaries that protect your frequency. I know that sounds harsh. I know it's easier to blame them, but this is where your power lives, in the recognition that no one can drain you without your permission. Not because you're choosing to let them, but because somewhere, consciously or unconsciously, you haven't created the energetic boundaries that would prevent it. Think of energy like water. If you're a cup and someone else is empty, water will naturally flow from full to empty when the containers touch. That's physics. That's how equilibrium works. But if you're a cup with a lid, with boundaries, with containment, the water can't flow out no matter how empty the other container is. The question isn't, why are they draining me? The question is, why am I open to being drained? And this is where the work gets real. Because usually, the reason you're open to being drained is because of something old. Something from childhood. Some programming that taught you that your value comes from being needed, that love equals sacrifice, that being a good person means being endlessly available, that setting boundaries is selfish. Maybe you grew up with a parent who needed you to be their emotional support. Maybe you learned early that the way to get love was to be useful. Maybe you were praised for being the helper, the giver, the one who never complained. And now, decades later, you're still playing that role, still believing that your worth is measured by how much you can give, still afraid that if you stop being available, people will stop loving you. But here's what that belief costs you: your peace, your energy, your life force. You become a resource to be extracted rather than a being to be honored. And the tragedy is that the people draining you often don't even see it, because you've trained them to see you as limitless, as always available, as the one who doesn't have needs. The shift begins when you realize that protecting your energy is not selfish. It's sacred. You are not a public utility. You are not required to be accessible to everyone at all times. Your energy is your life force, and how you allocate it determines the quality of your existence. This doesn't mean becoming cold or closed off. It doesn't mean cutting off everyone who's struggling. It means becoming discerning. It means recognizing that there's a difference between supporting someone and being consumed by someone. There's a difference between compassion and codependency. There's a difference between holding space and losing yourself. When you protect your energy, you're not saying, "You don't matter." You're saying, I matter too. You're saying my peace is not negotiable. You're saying I can only give from overflow, not from depletion. And here's what happens when you start operating from this place. The people who were draining you will respond in one of two ways. They'll either step up and start respecting your boundaries, transforming the relationship into something healthier, or they'll step away, revealing that they were never interested in you as a person, only as a resource. And both outcomes are blessings, because one strengthens a relationship worth having, and the other removes a relationship that was costing you your vitality. Think about the people in your life who don't drain you. The ones where time feels expansive, not extractive. Where conversation is reciprocal, not one-sided. Where you leave feeling energized, not depleted. Those are your frequency matches. Those are the people operating on a compatible wavelength. Notice how different it feels to be around them. Notice how you don't have to guard your energy because it's not being pulled from you. That's what alignment feels like. The universe is always showing you who belongs in your energy field and who doesn't. The exhaustion is the signal. The heaviness is the message. Your body is more honest than your mind will ever be. Your body knows instantly when someone is misaligned with your frequency, even when your mind tries to rationalize, to make excuses, to be nice. Start listening to your body. If you feel tired after spending time with someone, that's data. If you dread their calls, that's data. If you need significant recovery time after an interaction, that's data. Stop dismissing these signals as oversensitivity or weakness. They're not. They're your system's way of telling you that an exchange is imbalanced, that something is off, that protection is needed. To celebrate your arrival, we've prepared a gift, a guide to help you navigate your inner transitions with clarity and elegance. Alignment. 7 Phases of Consciousness Awakening. Download your copy from the link in the description. And protection doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't require confrontation or cutting people off. Sometimes it's as simple as limiting exposure, shortening visits, not answering every call, creating space. You can still care about someone from a distance. You can still wish them well while not being available for constant energy exchange. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. They allow in what nourishes and keep out what depletes. Here's a practice that changes everything. Before you interact with someone you know drains you, set a conscious intention. Visualize yourself surrounded by light, protected, contained. Tell yourself, I can be present without being porous. I can listen without absorbing. I can care without carrying. This isn't about being fake or closed off. It's about being boundaried. It's about showing up without losing yourself in the process. And notice what happens. Notice how when you enter an interaction with clear boundaries, the dynamic shifts. Often, the person who usually drains you won't be as draining because you're not unconsciously offering yourself up as a sponge. You're present, but protected, open, but not leaking. This is the art of energetic sovereignty. There's another layer to this that's important to understand. Sometimes people drain you not because they're taking energy, but because being around them forces you to suppress yourself. Have you ever been around someone where you feel like you can't be fully authentic? Where you have to dim your light, lower your voice, make yourself smaller? That suppression is exhausting. It's not that they're actively draining you, it's that the energy required to be inauthentic in their presence is depleting. This happens often with people who are judgmental, critical, or easily threatened. Your full expression intimidates them, so unconsciously you dim. You laugh less, you share less, you become a muted version of yourself, and that act of self-suppression is one of the most exhausting things you can do. Because you're using energy to contain energy. You're using life force to suppress life force. The people who are truly aligned with you won't require you to shrink. You'll feel free to be fully expressed, fully yourself. You'll feel like you can expand, not contract. That's how you know someone is energetically compatible, not because everything is easy, but because being yourself around them is effortless. So pay attention to who makes you feel more like yourself and who makes you feel like you need to perform, to manage, to control. The former are your people, the latter are lessons in boundaries. And yes, sometimes the people who drain you are family, sometimes they're people you love. Sometimes they're people you wish could be in your life differently. This is the hardest part, because you can't just cut them out, or you don't want to. And that's okay. You can love someone and still protect your energy from them. You can care deeply while maintaining distance. You can honor the relationship while honoring yourself more. Family doesn't get unlimited access to your energy just because of shared DNA. Love doesn't mean endless availability. Loyalty doesn't mean self-sacrifice. You can redefine these relationships on your own terms. You can decide what you're available for and what you're not. And you can do it with love, with respect, but with firmness. Because here's the thing, when you stop being endlessly available, you teach people how to have a healthier relationship with you. You show them that you're not a dumping ground, you're not a 24/7 support hotline. You're a human being with your own needs, your own limits, your own life to live. And the people who truly love you will respect that. The people who don't were never really there for you anyway. They were there for what you could provide. This is the liberation. When you realize that your energy is your most valuable resource. More precious than your time, more valuable than your money, because everything flows from your energy. Your creativity, your joy, your health, your presence. When your energy is depleted, everything suffers. But when your energy is protected, when you're operating from a full cup, everything flourishes. So start treating your energy like it's sacred. Because it is. Start being selective about who gets access to it. Start noticing patterns. Who leaves you feeling full? Who leaves you feeling empty? And start making choices based on that data. This isn't about becoming selfish or isolated. It's about becoming whole. It's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup, that you can't be of service to anyone if you're constantly depleted, that your first responsibility is to maintain your own energy so that what you give comes from overflow, not from deficit. And when you start living this way, something magical happens. The right people start showing up. The aligned relationships start revealing themselves. Because when you're no longer tolerating energy drains, when you're no longer accepting crumbs, when you're no longer dimming your light, you create space for people who match your frequency. You create space for relationships that are reciprocal, nourishing, expansive. The universe responds to your standards. It gives you what you're willing to accept. So raise your standards, protect your peace, honor your energy, and watch how your entire life transforms. You are not here to be endlessly available to everyone. You are not here to be a dumping ground for other people's unprocessed emotions. You are not here to dim your light to make others comfortable. You are here to shine, to create, to experience joy, to live fully. And you cannot do any of that if you're constantly drained. So make the choice. Choose yourself. Choose your peace. Choose your energy. Not because other people don't matter, but because you matter too. Not because you're abandoning anyone, but because you're finally showing up for yourself. And from that place of fullness, from that place of sovereignty, from that place of protected energy, you become capable of showing up in the world in a way that's actually sustainable, in a way that actually serves, in a way that doesn't leave you hollow. This is your permission slip to say no, to create distance, to limit exposure, to protect what's yours. Your energy is your life force. Guard it like the precious resource it is. Because once you understand that certain people drain you instantly, not because something is wrong with you, but because the frequency doesn't match, everything changes. You stop taking it personally. You stop trying to force connections that deplete you. You start honoring the truth your body has been trying to tell you all along. Some people are not meant to have unlimited access to you. Some relationships are meant to be loved from a distance. Some connections are meant to teach you about boundaries, not intimacy. And all of this is okay. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sovereign. Protect your peace. Not aggressively, not defensively, but firmly, with clarity, with self-respect, because your peace is the foundation of everything else, and anyone or anything that consistently disrupts it doesn't belong in your inner circle. They can exist in your life, but not at the center, not at the cost of your well-being. If this resonated with something in you, if you felt the truth of it in your body, then you already know what needs to shift. You already know who you've been giving too much access to. You already know where your boundaries need to strengthen. The question is, will you honor what you know? Will you trust your own experience enough to make different choices? You don't need permission from anyone to protect your energy. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to feel guilty. You need to reclaim your power and create a life where your energy is respected, starting with you respecting it yourself. Subscribe if you're ready to choose yourself. Not because I need the numbers, but because clicking that button is a small act of commitment to your own transformation. It's a signal to yourself that you're done depleting yourself for others, that you're ready to protect what's sacred, that you're ready to live from a full cup instead of constantly trying to fill everyone else's while yours runs dry. Your peace matters. Your energy matters. You matter. Now start living like it. The Cipher of Inner Stillness is a poetic journey through the hidden geometry of peace. Blending mystical philosophy, Jungian psychology, and cosmic symbolism, this ebook reveals that silence is not the absence of life. It is its source. Discover this and other codices that transform the way you see the universe through the link in the description.